Hi everybody, it's Benita Hutchison here, your psychic life and business coach with the May forecast. Just so you know, I've been getting over cold, so I still have some asthma. You may hear me cough a bit. Sorry about that. Let's get our die set up. So to see how May is going to turn out. Okay, nothing landed specifically in the core. We're going to ignore all these ones that went outside the map. So that's going to be an interesting one. And we will pick our card for the month as well. And our card is the Knight of Judgment. So we'll see how he shows up as we go. All right, now our chaos die took off. It went off the mat, so we can ignore it. We always like to look at the fate die in case anything has to move. And it's showing up under the future as the hand, like the hand that's been dealt. So the situation is as we've come to find it. So it's just what we have now. So in other words, it's saying it is what it is. This is not about changing anything on the mat. This is the situation. So that simplifies things. All right. So we are going to start with our actions die. Let's see if it's on. It is on the mat. And the actions die is in the future, and it's a flaming sword. So we're going to see how that one plays out for us. And it is the desire to run away and start again. So it speaks to the ease of raising something, raising R-O-Z-I-N-G, raising, burning something to the ground, starting over. Throwing away everything sometimes is necessary to keep moving forward. So a lot of times when we hang on to things, we're meant to let it go. In fact, they say one really great way of inviting abundance is to give things away. If you think about the potlatch that the First Nations people would do, if somebody was doing really well, they'd hold a party, they would give everything away that they had and share in the abundance, and others would do the same for them. So there'd be this cycle of abundance that would occur in that community. So sometimes it's looking at, what am I hanging on to? Because I don't know what the future holds. I'm afraid of the unknown, so I'm going to hang on to this thing. It might be a job, it might be a relationship, it might be where you live, something, or it might just be stuff that you're hanging on to because it gives you a sense of security. You know, we think about hoarders and we think that's the extreme version of that. But we all can tend to hoard in some way, hanging on to things we don't actually need and aren't really serving a purpose in our lives, just to have the stuff. You know, I don't know how many of you have followed Marie Kondo's work, you know, the magical, mystical, spiritual art of tidying up, something like that. And what she does is she has you go into your home and pick an item. So it might be all your shirts. You put them all on a pile on the floor in one room. And first of all, by doing that, instead of going from room to room, you get a sense of like, I got a lot of shirts. I actually did this once. And I'm looking at this almost 6 foot high pile of shirts, going, I have a lot of shirts. And then she has you pick up each item and ask, does this spark joy? And if it doesn't, you thank it's for its service, and you put it away either to be tossed out or given away, depending on its condition. And it frees up the energy in your home. So when I did this, and I ended up rearranging my space as a result, people would come and go, wow, the energy's so different here. And so it's a neat way of moving some abundance into your life. What are you hanging on to that because you're hanging on, there's no space for the universe to give you what you're actually meant to have, which is usually far better than what our limited ego consciousness can imagine for ourselves at that point. I'm just going to make sure that we have not skipped. Oh, there we go. The Knight of Judgment is with this particular dice. And it says, ask the simplest question, does this serve you? So there you go. Without even looking at the card, but obviously knew what it was. So it's basically looking at, does this serve me? And if it doesn't, why am I hanging on to it? All right. Moving on. We are looking at the Alchemist die. And that one is showing up in the past. So it's showing up right smack dab in the middle of the past as copper. And it's considered the lightning rod. It's what energy gathers around. So when you look at it that way, it's that's what grows. So you might say that the past is serving to charge the future. So what's gone on in the past that now is the fuel for the next stage. So one of the things I like to do, for example, is say I've done something that I feel I've made a mistake in some way. It's very easy for us to beat ourselves up, and I'm guilty of that. I'm somebody who's very conscientious about my actions. So if I feel I've made a faux pas, I can be really, really hard on myself. And so one of the techniques I develop, because you can get stuck in that, is self-compassion, where I'll say, because I did this, I've learned this, and here's how I'm going to apply it going forward. So now it becomes something to grow on. And so that's something to think about. And, instead of saying, I did this, I'm a terrible person, or whatever, to say, because I did this, what did I learn from that? Because sometimes the only way we can do the shadow work is we do something. We'd like to say, oh, I will never do this, or I will never say that. And then when it does happen, and it seems so unlike us, it's our shadow coming up. And rather than push it back down inside and say, well, that'll never happen again, you want to let it up and look at it. Go, okay, why did that happen? What's that part of me trying to achieve in its own, maybe not constructive way? And now how can I work to become more aware of that so that if the situation occurs again where the shadow is triggered, it's more conscious now and can make different choices. And sometimes you'll have to repeat history. Sometimes you'll have to do something that you go, oh, I'm here again. But it's different a little bit now because you've been working on becoming conscious of the pattern. And as you become conscious of the pattern, as things start to shift, then your awareness shifts and you grow. Rather than just going, yep, that won't happen again, which it will if you suppress it because it doesn't get to become aware, you want to let that up and work with it. So sometimes your shadow work can't just be done sitting in the privacy of your home. Sometimes it's going to come up in relationship. That's often how we learn about things about ourselves. When we know, I've affected somebody this way. How do I work on that? So you're getting a lot out of each dice today, so that's pretty cool. All right, the alley die. So the alley man is showing up under fated, and it shows a hand holding a broken shell. And it's called scavenge. So it's necessary for survival. It's not just collecting garbage and turning it into treasure. It's finding what's left when things fall, finding what was good in a bad situation. So yeah, I'm just going to take a second to turn on my overhead fan because it's getting really hot in here. I can't believe it's May and it's cooking. Woo! All right, let's get some air movement in this place. Whew. Okay. So one of the things that happened recently is Tillman and I participated in the Nanaimo infusion. And that's where hundreds of Americans came to visit Nanaimo. And we had some really healing conversations. And one of the things I said is, here's what, and I don't normally like to get into politics, but I'm looking at it from a spiritual perspective. I said, this is what Trump has done for us. He's helped unite Canadians. Sometimes when there's a schism, as there was after COVID, a lot of people split ideas about, their feelings around vaccines and stuff. A lot of people came together over a common threat, right? Our sovereignty. And a lot of us started buying Canadian more and shopping in other countries and looking at more interprovincial trade. There's a lot, like every time there's a catalyst, and catalysts usually create a bad situation, or there would be no reason to respond to it. We'd just be like, yeah, it's okay. It can cause growth. And I think there's been tremendous growth as a result. And growth isn't comfortable. It's difficult. So when I see this showing up under fated, the message is whatever you're dealing with, whether it's the bigger story in our world right now, or whether it's something in your personal life, can you find a way to see the benefit of it? What is it making me look at that I would not have looked at because I was happy, I was complacent, life's good? What is it making you look at about yourself? How am I responding to the situation? Can I find a constructive way to look at it and respond to it? So that we're being given that opportunity to wake up. All right. And that's what I always say is what we're all here to do is wake up. And waking up isn't a comfortable thing to do. It can be very challenging. So our attentions die is showing up in the present, and that's the closet. So it says, closets are the things in your life you can't let anyone know about, but you also know someday have to come out and be known. So in the present, and this is forming a triangle, so we're going to see how these other die play in as well. In the present, it's saying there's something that has to come to the surface now. You can see how the theme is forming here. Has to come to the surface to be known. And it might be uncomfortable, it might be public, but it gives you a chance to look at it. So we can, and we're in a world where a lot of facts are covered up and there's a lot of fake stuff out there and a lot of AI videos and all that. Truth is so important. And sometimes looking at the truth about ourselves, it's hard, it's painful, but if we have the courage to do it, we can grow. So it's accepting that sometimes you may find yourself in a situation that you can't just brush under the rug, or you can, but you know that it's not going to solve anything. There might have to be an uncomfortable conversation. There might have to be a difficult situation that you have to face. But that's how we grow. All right. Moving on. We come to, actually, no, we don't come to the autumn die. It's off the mat. We skip that. Skip the chaos die. Our elements die is showing up under the present. And that's this one here. And it says earth. So it speaks to our foundations in the world. It can speak to a need to reconnect to nature, or find your root in your own world. Actions you take every day that help you to feel grounded. So interesting that we have this dice saying it's time to let go of whatever doesn't serve you. The one that says raise it to the ground, burn it to the ground, right? This one, this is, it is what it is. And this one saying, look to your roots. So in the near future, it's very much about grounding ourselves and what's really important. So, for example, gas is getting really expensive. Does that mean we start looking at where is a place I can walk to or bike to? What are the activities I could be doing at home or in my neighborhood, and start spending more time in community locally, so that we, you know, sometimes when something is taken away from us, the easy convenience of I can travel wherever I like because this is cheap, it makes us look at, okay, if I can't do that, how is the universe guiding me to the direction I'm supposed to go by not allowing me to keep going there in that other direction? And how is it making me get a little more centered and local and inward because I can't scatter my energy far and wide, right? So that's that one. And the fake die we've done. The Goblin die. So the Goblin die is showing up right on the line between present and future. That's the one right here. It looks like a little cog. It's called manufacturing. It speaks to the movement to making a thing real. So it's basically saying what's going on in the present is absolutely pivotal to what we're creating going forward. So one way of looking at it is this. We can be reactionary. I don't like this, I don't like that, things are changing, I'm unhappy. Or we can say, How do I look at the current situation and plan going forward for how I can work with this, how I can make the most of the current situation so that I'm not just wishing things were the way they were. You know, whether we go through illness, injury, job loss, relationship changes, what have you, we cannot always control what happens to us. We always have a say over how we respond. So it's looking at what's going on in my current world that I can sit around and hope and wish was different and resent that it's not. Or I can instead say, given what's currently going on, what do I want to plan going forward that works within these parameters? Right? All right. And if we look at the influences die, it's sitting in history, and that's this spiral path. It's called arcane, and it's that thing unknown but hovering and touching and permeating. So it can be energy shifts, it can be ritual. It's the esoteric thing we do not understand, but we understand has great power in the situation. So this is very interesting because it's showing up under history, and we have the copper here that's magnetizing the energy from the past. We are going through a cycle. We've been here before. Tyranny never wins. Eventually, it's taken down because it's not a functional system. And it's, what comes back in its place is something more aware, more functional, more reasonable for people to continue with, because dysfunctional systems have to break down and functional ones have to take their place. It's a cycle. So I look on this as what is the history, both in your personal life and in our lives overall, that we're really being shown right now. This is what is happening. Look to the past. What happened in the past that gives us hope for the future, that says this is a cycle. I remember talking to the folks in the States, and I said to them, this is messy. It's not going to get cleaned up very quickly. It's going to be messy for a while, but it will get better because it's just the way these cycles work, right? And we can all be part of that, part of improving things by becoming aware and being willing to engage. All right, the kindness die. Where's the kindness die? Oh, well, that's interesting. Maybe it went to the floor. I don't see it here. I'll make sure I didn't leave it in the box. I did not. So the kindness die is in the ethers somewhere. So we will move on. All right. The longings die shows up into the present, and it shows an open hand. And it's called touch. And touch is most often simply about the need for human connection. So we can see here, we've got this triangle. Remember that this one was about revealing what's hidden. And this is about the need for human connection. So when I look at this triangle, what I see so far is what is coming to the surface is our need for human connection. We've, gotten into all our media. Sometimes it isolates us from each other. Part of not being able to maybe travel as far and wide is we get more local and we build more community where we are. How can we support and help each other? And so that's what I see happening there. As part of what comes to the surface is acknowledging our need for human connection, acknowledging the importance of it. Now under Fated, we have the heart die, and it's called heart. This is love is perhaps an endless piece of human life. Love for others, love for ourselves. Heart carries with it the travails of love as well as the good parts. So it's basically looking at how love affects things. And I think it's really interesting that under Fated, we have the scavenging one. And, it's all about looking at, what can we derive from the situation that's good? And heart is connected to that. So it's just reinforcing what I was saying earlier about looking for the good in the scenario, in what we're dealing with. The Mariner's die is off the map. We will skip it. The Metamorphosis die is off the map. We will skip that. Okay. The Obstacles die is a rose, which is peace. And it's showing up right on the edge here in the present. So it says it's a tricky obstacle. Sometimes we get just what we want. We stem the tide of opposition, we stop the conflict, and we get peace. Then what? Sometimes the hardest part is no longer having a clear foe. What do you fight when there's no one left on the other side? So that's interesting. It's looking on it as, in the present, we're recognizing our need for community. The manufacturing die that's right here is all about what's happening in the present, going into the future, and creating something solid. And the peace die is saying, in the present, that's what we're building. And it's learning not to see people as other, not to say, you're my foe and I have to fight you, but to look at how do we come together and how do we work together to create something more viable going forward. The relations die is sitting under inevitable, and it says apart, and it specifically speaks to two people being separated. It can be by choice, such as traveling or a breakup, or it can be forced. So it speaks to something in particular occurring in a relationship. So when I look at that under inevitable, because of where it's sitting, I would say it's simply saying that in this journey, eventually we go off into our next experience. We go off into the adventure that lies beyond this life. So in other words, don't take this all too seriously. You came here for the journey. You came here to be part of the play. Play your role. Learn what you came to learn, knowing that at some point you get to let go and move on. So keep that perspective. All right. Spring die is not on that. The suits die, we have this crown. And it's an interesting one because it says it's meant to be worn when it adorns another die. It's either on top of it or set to the side. It raises the importance of that die greatly. So in other words, when we look at it, it's next to the one that says things are what they are. The earth one that says get grounded and find your roots. And then this sword that says raise it to the ground, burn things to the ground that don't fit anymore. There's a very, very strong message coming here in our near future saying we really are needing now to look at what's necessary from the roots up, build what is necessary, start looking at the life we have and what's necessary in it. I can't remember the name of it now, but there's a wonderful children's book that was written, and it was about a future where, because fossil fuels had become rare, people were living differently. They were using push mowers. They, were back to horse and cart kind of things. And it was a more pastoral, peaceful kind of life that they developed. Now, sure, it's a children's story and it's idyllic. But the concept of looking at what do I actually need? What can I do without? And what can replace it? I can go out for entertainment, or I can sit on my deck under the trees and read a book. What are the ways that we can connect and build the life going forward that doesn't require as much use of our resources? Now, that's just one example. There may be something else in your life that you're going, I've been hanging on to this. It might be, like, again, job, relationship, home. Might be something big, could be something small. And I realize hanging on to it doesn't actually feel good. I'm not enjoying it. I'm hanging on to it out of fear. I know this, so I'll keep this because I know this. And if I were to let go, okay, I'd maybe go through some fear because I don't know what my life looks like on the other side of that. But if I'm willing to let go, I get to find out. I couldn't have seen the marvelous life I have now from where I was 10, 20, 30 years ago. But if I'd hung on to things along the way, I wouldn't have gotten here. I wouldn't have been willing to leave Ontario and come to BC, sight unseen, not knowing anybody, just I'm supposed to go, I'll go. I couldn't have seen that I'd end up on an island with a man I dearly love, having the adventures that we have, had I not been willing to let go of what I know and step into the unknown. And I think that's a key part of the spiritual journey. You're not here to find a safe place to hide. You're here to grow, to change, to challenge yourself, to step into what's new. Because the universe has in store for you something more than you can imagine from where you are now. And the only way you find out what that is by letting go of the known that you know isn't serving you anymore. Okay, so under the past, we have the fist die. And it's the heat of the fight. So it's interesting to me because I look at it this way. We have these die on either side really charging the past, and this one about the fight. And that's why I say it harkens back to other times in our history when there's been great conflict. And most North Americans have lived pretty comfortably. We've been able to look at these things happening in other parts of the world going, well, glad it's not us, but it's on our doorstep now. It's affecting everybody. So we're having to look at that history and go, the history of conflict in the world, most people in the world have had to pack what they have and flee from their home at some point in their lives, or leave because resources dried up or what have you. So we've gotten very used to being comfortable. We've gotten very used to having more choice and more control over things in our lives, or at least perceived control. And so when you have to let go of that, there's a lot of fear. There's even anger, resentment. Why should I have to go through this? And I think sometimes looking at the bigger picture of humanity and realizing that most humans live in a far more precarious situation than we do, that's worth paying attention to and realizing I'm part of history. That precariousness, it's part of the human condition. I watched a movie once on happiness, and they went all over the world and interviewed people on whether or not they were happy. And they met this fellow who had, his daughter, and they lived in a shack right on the beach, and asked him if he was happy. He says, I'm very happy. Well, what do you do for a living? I go out and I catch fish, and I bring home enough fish to eat that day. And so I'm happy. He had what he needed, had clothes on his back, lived in a beautiful warm environment, had food that he would just go out and get fresh every day. He didn't see himself as lacking anything. And I think that's so important because it's so easy for us to move into a state of lack over stupid stuff. Like I didn't get that dress I wanted to order because I couldn't get it in my size, or I didn't get my coffee on time at the coffee shop, right? It's really, again, looking at what do I really need and what am I hanging on to that's just making me unhappy, which harkens back to the concept in Buddhism that we suffer through attachment, right? And aversion. I want this, I don't want that. And if we can't control those things, we get real unhappy about it. Okay, so the next die is the winter die. And it's interesting because it's softening and covering things we've forgotten or things we can afford to forget. So it's interesting that it comes along with the dice, the closet die, about things that have not been known being made known. We may have fallen into a slumber of complacency. And what it's triggering for us in this triangle is the awakening of the need for human connection. We can't sit comfortably anymore. The world is designed right now to make us uncomfortable, so we'll do the work. I remember reading about a place, I think it was in Italy, where every Monday night, the whole city would come out onto the streets. People would set up tables and play cards. They danced, their radios or what have you. Why? Because it was the one night of the week that the TV stations didn't produce any shows. No television for that night. People came out and entertained themselves. Invention, right, is the mother of necessity. Something like that. Necessity is the mother of invention. That's what it is. So when you can't have something, what do you do about that? You can bemoan it, or you can work with it. All right. And the last die is called tongue, and it's sitting out here under inevitable, but also with future. It's a marker that someone feels they cannot speak. They may have a secret, they're not in a safe place to share. More likely, others know their truth and work to stop them from having a chance to share it. So we might see that, for example, as there's a lot of muzzling of the media or overshadowing it with a lot of fake media. I mean, I've had several times this week that I've seen something come up in the media and go, wow, that's quite the story. And then I'll Google to see if the actual news agencies covered it, only to find it's fake news. We're having to do that a lot right now. So it's, oh, there's the kindness dive. We do have it. I'm going to go back to that one. We do have a lot of need to speak our minds if there's something that needs to come up and we've been suppressing it. Will somebody else benefit by you sharing your truth? Will somebody else benefit because you speak up with them and for them? When the Nanaimo infusion happened, being able to talk to people and say, you know, might not be too keen on your administration, but we feel for everything your people are going through. There was a lot of hugs, a lot of tears, a lot of people feeling relief that Canadians are there for them. And as Canadians, we're benefiting because a lot of people are moving here, and a lot of them are medical staff who we desperately need. So what needs to be said that hasn't been said? And be willing to challenge what you see online so that you know you're getting truth. And I know that's a tricky thing these days because of the way things are being put out there. So we have an arrow through the heart here under momentum, and it's acknowledging the heart is struck. So Cupid's arrow has sent the querent after someone or something. Life is good, and something is driving a consistent production of good brain chemicals. So what I'm liking about seeing that, and it's like we've got peace right here with a line that moves up to that. And I feel when I look at that, it's saying, coming from a place after we've recognized community is important, we want community, we want humanity connected. What are we going to build to create peace? And there's a lot of momentum, heart energy to do so, which then moves us into that rootedness, that letting go of what's not working and emphasizing what will going forward. Not just the practical, maybe I'm going to do more things locally, but in terms of our interactions, what works? Fighting, it doesn't usually resolve anything. How do we build connection? And, you know, again, talking about the Nanaimo infusion, how did that come about? Todd Maffin had put some stuff out on the internet, and people reached out to him on Discord. Americans reached out and said, we're so sorry about what our administration is doing. How can we help? He said, come here for my birthday. Come and spend money in our community. Show your support by being here. And hundreds did. And this year, hundreds more showed up. So we have to remember, with all the news that we do here, it's a very small fragment of what's actually going on in the world. There's a lot of good people wanting to do a lot of good things, and we can be part of that in our own world and however we feel moved to do so. Let's keep building through kindness and connection. Thanks, everybody. Have a beautiful May. I'll look forward to seeing you again in June.